Sajlović was no longer an officer in 1995. He had criticized Orić's black marketeering and was kicked out of the army. Others, who did the same, were severely beaten or killed. The day before the fall of Srebrenica, Sajlović volunteered to fight again.
I onda sam došao ovdje na jedan ogroman prizor, znači to je poslije podne 10. jula, gdje narod počinje da biži iz periferije grada, iz Petriće, žene vuku kese, djeca plaću, nekog ovcu, kravu, sve to biži sa periferije grada. Jedan prizor koji se meni prvi put dešava u životu i jeza me fata. I onda pomislim, pa je li ovo sve gotovo, narod već napušta grad i tako dalje.
Sajlović and his men waited in the trenches for 12 hours, but got no orders from their leaders.
Hajmo, reko, ljudi, vojska gori, jer nema niko da to vodi, nema. I krećem ja gore sa ovog dijela, jedan broj ljudi, 50-100 ljudi, neki s uniformama, neki ne sa naoružanjem, normalno. Krećemo gore da vidimo jesu li četnici sišli u gradu, odnosno da zaustavimo, razumijete? I noć Srebrenica još nije pala tu, ne znam šta se dešava. I mi sjedimo tu i uopšte ne znamo šta se dešava. Niko nikog ne konsultuje. Oni se negdje sastaju tu noć, vojno i civilno rukovodstvo, i donose odluku da se Srebrenica napušta. Pazi, mi smo izolovani, mi smo po strani, mi ne znamo šta se dešava.
S Alijom smo imali razgovor u 5 sati ujutru, otvoren, da spašava žene, djecu i starce, a nas vojno sposobni nek nas pobiju kad nećemo da se branimo. On je rekao da mi držimo još 2 sata, međutim nikad se više nije htio javiti. Ja sam u ovom ratu izgubio 2 brata i oca koji nisu uzeli oružje. Ja jesam uzeo oružje. Plakali smo mi taj dan kad je Srebrenica pala. Vidjeli smo izdaju i od Alije Izetbegovića i od međunarodne zajednice. Imaju samo dobri i loši ljudi u svakom narodu. Alija je loš čovjek.
Professor Filipović is certain that Orić's army did not fight because there was an agreement between the Serbs and Muslim leadership.
To guarantee that there is not going to be defense.
So to guarantee there's not going to be...
That Muslims are not going to defend themselves. To defend Srebrenica. That Serbians are going to be allowed to enter the Srebrenica.
Who made that decision? Who was key to making that decision?
Izetbegović.
On the morning of the 11th of July 1995, the Bosnian Serb general Ratko Mladić drove easily into an empty Srebrenica. Everyone had left the town.
Jesu naši još napred? Još napred. Čiste glave uzeti. Možete komotnicu autobusu. Dobro, znam ja da može neki dan za mnom polako.
Soon, Mladić could triumphantly walk into the deserted headquarters of Nasir Orić.
Nasirovo brte skrovište. Pravac Potočar. Pravac Potočar i Bratunac. Nemojte se zaustaviti. Hajde.
With no one to defend them, about 20,000 old people, women and children fled in panic to the Dutch UN base north of the town. Mladić faced a serious and unclear security situation and wanted to find the missing Orić army as quickly as possible. On the evening of the 11th, he called for an urgent meeting with the United Nations peacekeepers to locate Nasir Orić's 5,500 soldiers. The Dutch UN commander asked the schoolteacher Nesib Mandić, who after the war became the mayor of Srebrenica, to join them in the negotiations with Mladić.
Šta vi želite, Nesib? Mislite mene lično, može narod taj tamo što želi. Pa želi da se spasi od patnje. To želio i srpski narod da je i 93. Pod broj 1 trebate da položite oružje i svima koji polože oružje garantujem život. I imate moju reč kao čoveka i generala da ću iskoristiti svoj utjecaj i da pomognem nedužnom muslimanskom stanovništvu koje nije cilj dejstva Vojske Republike Srpske. Na sebe i u vašim rukama sudbina vašeg naroda.
But Nezib Mladić could do nothing. Neither Izetbegovic nor anyone else from the political or military leadership bothered to answer Srebrenica's calls for help. Most of the 15,000 Muslim men in Srebrenica had no intention of surrendering. They feared Serb revenge after the village massacres in 1992 and 93 and tried to escape through the Serb-controlled mountains that surrounded Srebrenica. The column of men was a mix of soldiers and civilians.
The fact is, within 24 to 48 hours of the fall of Srebrenica on 11 July 1995, elements of the Bosnian Serb army under the control of their counterintelligence service executed probably about 2,000 Muslim males, most of them prisoners of war, disarmed prisoners of war. And the other 5,000 or so Muslims who were killed over the next 5 days during the breakout by small to large groups, accompanied by the battalion-sized groups trying to break through with civilians with them back to their second corps lines around Tuzla. And they were just killed in large numbers by artillery fire, by machine gun fire, because the Serbs were able to locate them, they knew where they were. But again, to the Serbs, to be fair, this looked a lot more like a conventional military operation.
Today, even Serb officials admit that wide-scale war crimes took place in the hills around Srebrenica. But the Serbs will never admit that this was premeditated genocide.
Vidim samo kao žrtvu kao i sve ostale žrtve. Znači normalna porodica bila. A život što je izgubio, znači nije izgubio uopšte kao pojedinac, kao osoba. Nego je izgubio kao većina, kao grupa tih ljudi koje je trebalo sve pobiti. Eto, samo zbog tog je, na primjer, su ljudi pobijeni. Ja njega ne razdvajam od ostalih žrtava. Sve je to isto.
Of the 6,200 bodies identified through DNA profiling, only half have been released for burial. Many families want the government to release all the bodies to the families now and not just some each year. Every mass funeral prolongs their pain.
Turn on mine.
Yeah.
Fuad Jusic just buried his brother Nusret, and it was pretty emotional thing for him as we can see and hear, the place, it's heavy with the sadness and very, very deep feelings. So, that's it.
Da cilj operacije Vojske Republike Srpske nije bilo civilno stanovništvo, niti snage UNPROFOR-a. Cilj naše operacije u ovoj i drugim enklavama su fundamentalističke terorističke bande.
These were the last public words heard from General Mladic. He said farewell to the Dutch UN peacekeepers in 1995, and since then, he's been on the run. Nasser Oric was also accused of war crimes, but he was acquitted on all charges at the International War Crime Tribunal in The Hague in 2008. The Serbs were furious, but for many Muslims, he is still the defender of Srebrenica, the Bosnian Che Guevara, a war hero. He will not be interviewed about his time in Srebrenica. In the spring of 2009, he was arrested with some of Sarajevo's gangsters in possession of illegal weapons. President Izetbegovic's influential son, Bakir, was his father's closest advisor during the war, and he also has close ties with Oric. Bakir, who is a member of the Bosnian parliament, said to Fazla he would consider an interview, but he hasn't responded to our letters or phone calls. The former military commander, General Sefir Hailovic, is today a member of the same parliament. He's in no doubt that there was a deal between Izetbegovic and the Serbs about Srebrenica.
Ako pogledate gdje su Srebreničani nakon genocida naseljeni, na kojim prostorima su naseljeni, onda se vidi da je to apsolutno to. I to je jedino na osnovu čega se može zaključiti. Dakle, žive na prostoru, upravo na ovim prostorima koji su nuđeni za razmjenu teritorija. Nešto ih ima gore oko Tuzle i to je to.
President Alija Izetbegovic's wish was fulfilled. Before the war, most people living in Volgograd were Serbs. Today, 90% of the people here are Muslims, and most of them are from Srebrenica. President Alija Izetbegovic was buried as a national hero in 2003. But in Srebrenica, he has a very different legacy.
Alija buried us all, meaning that our former president, Alija Izetbegovic, is bearing responsibilities for what's happened in Srebrenica.